going 21 gigawatts. My God!
Shall we play a game?
Would you like a jelly baby?
Engage auto systems.
Aye. Engaged.
Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power.
You know how to fly, don't you?
No. Do you?
You shall not pass!
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
The Force will be with you, always.
Hi, and welcome to the Geek Hangout podcast. My name is Mark, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Grant. How you doing tonight, Grant?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing great. Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 63 of the Geek Hangout podcast. Excited to have you for the show tonight. We got a good show tonight. We're going to talk about our review of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We saw that this past weekend. We also had Moon Knight wrap up on Disney Plus, so we'll talk about that. We got Obi Wan Kenobi. We got a trailer for Star Wars Day, so all excited for Obi Wan. And also we have Star Trek Picard wrapped up this past week, so we'll talk about that. And then finally we have they announced the new Doctor Who, so we could talk a little bit about that and give some thoughts on that. So, normally we start out with what we've been up to, but before the show we're talking, apparently we've been watching TV. That's what we've been up to. So,
and we're going to talk about everything we've been up to in the show.
Right. So apparently, right, nothing too exciting going on, but just lots and lots of TV to catch up on and movies and all that good stuff. So, I guess to start out, we'll lead off with our review of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and I guess we should probably preface this all by saying that we're doing full spoilers for everything. So if you haven't seen Doctor Strange, if you haven't seen Moon Knight, if you haven't seen Picard, we're going to spoil the whole thing. So do it. So just be prepared.
So, red alert, spoiler alert, whatever it was. We're going to get into it. So, all right. So let's get into I almost said Doctor Who. Let's get into Doctor Strange. What we saw it together, so we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I'll throw it to Mark and say, well, what'd you think? Let's hear your thoughts.
I mean, I thought it was really good. It wasn't. I will say it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I mean, it was different than I don't really know what I was looking what I was expecting. I wasn't really looking for anything, but what I was like, I wasn't really sure what I was expecting, but this wasn't it, right?
And
but it was really good. Like I mean I liked the movie a lot. Like it was I guess Doctor Strange was a little bit different than we've sort of seen him in the past, I guess, and I don't know. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I mean, it opens up all kinds of possibilities, and for what all this means for the MCU. There's a lot that happens. It's almost like you gotta. I almost want to see it again.
Yeah.
Just to kind of because there's so much that happens. There's a lot to process in this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because I mean, there a lot, like you said, a lot happens, and you're just kind of you got to separate some of the fun elements and some of the neat stuff from the actual what does this mean for the MCU as a whole type of thing,
right?
So I agree with what you're saying. I did like the movie a lot. I enjoyed it, but I was expecting something different. I was expecting just from the trailers and everything. I was not expecting the Scarlet Witch to be the bad guy. I honestly thought that she would be I thought maybe it would be a classic Marvel comic where the heroes fight, but then they team up and then they go after the real bad guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought. And from the trailers, I assumed the real bad guy was going to be the evil Doctor Strange, who I also presumed was the evil Doctor Strange from the What If TV show.
Right.
And so none of that came true. None of that happened.
Yeah.
So it's not that I was disappointed. It's just that it's not what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I was really surprised that they sort of went I was not. I guess that's part of what it wasn't what I was expecting. I was really surprised that they kind of went all in on Wanda being the bad guy. That shocked me because I just went, especially after WandaVision,
right,
where you sort of I've I felt more connected to Wanda than I ever have, after WandaVision. I'm like, man, I really, like, I was more interested in her story than I've ever been before, and I really wanted, like, after WandaVision, and I actually watched WandaVision before the movie. Like, I was able to, I kind of squeezed it in that week before we went, and man, I like that show. It really is a good show, and it's almost better when you go back and rewatch it. But it was like, I want her to get back with Vision. I want her to get her kids back. So I really fell for her. So it surprised me that that's who they make the villain in this film. And they really are all in on it. I was surprised.
Yeah, there was a bit of not a cheat per se, but at the end of WandaVision, she gets the Darkhold, the evil book. And I guess she got that from Agatha, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then she starts looking at that, and that's kind of like the last scene we see of her in WandaVision, where she's reading the book, and I guess that's the beginning of the book corrupting her.
Right.
So it took me, like, I guess, a little while, and I think it was almost even after the movie that I realized, although they probably said it in the movie, but that Wanda was having her emotional issues, and she wanted to get some version of her children back, but it was the Darkhold book that sort of corrupted her and pushed her to that extreme.
Right.
And so, I'm sure it's all in the movie, but I just remember it after the movie being like, oh, it was kind of the book's fault type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, I'd like to see it again for that reason too, to see how strong those connections are. Like, is it all in the movie, or is that something that they should have done a better job with to really make you realize that the book was the corrupter,
right,
and not as much her.
And I've watched some stuff since the movie, because I was like wanted to get my head around it. So I've watched some reviews and people discussing it on YouTube and reading reviews and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And they do, and this wasn't something that I picked up, but I'm like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. Is that it talks about how the Darkhold corrupts whoever's using it, right? So in WandaVision, we have that scene where Agatha is going to get burned at the stake. It's like a flashback where the other witches are going to kill her or whatever, and it's like it was because she was using the Darkhold then, and that corrupted her, right, and made her as powerful as she was. And then we see Wanda sort of get corrupted by this thing. Like, she sort of gets to a really good place after WandaVision, right? Or maybe not a good place, but she's sort of like coming to terms with Vision's loss and her children's loss. But then the Darkhold starts corrupting her. Like, we see that at the end. And then even in this film, Doctor Strange uses it, and then after he uses it, he gets sort of that third eye, which is sort of suggesting that he's been like corrupted on some level by the Darkhold, right? Because he used it. And
I see. Right.
Yeah, and I was like, and after I was like, oh yeah, it's all there. It didn't click for me, but that makes sense.
So I think about what I was trying to say, but so the Doctor Strange, with the Doctor Strange and his third eye, with our Doctor Strange's third eye, I didn't realize that was an indication that he had been corrupted by the Darkhold. I was thinking it was something that the evil Doctor Strange had already, but not that. I basically forgot about the Darkhold part of it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I that was not something I was expecting either. Like I said, I didn't really pick up on that until I watched some of the reviews and read some of the reviews and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I see what they're saying. Yeah. Because especially and I guess we should talk about the end credits scene. well, I mean, because we get the end credit scene where the end of the movie is he gets the third eye, right? And then
and he like screams out in pain, and then they cut the black, so you assume that, oh no, something has happened here.
Right. And then we go to the end credit scene, and we get a new character, and and it's sort of like that's a thing that he has control of now, right?
Right.
So, and
what was her name?
I'm looking for it right now. She is from the comics. I know that much.
Okay, and she's played by Charlize Theron.
Right.
I know that, and I think her name is. Oh, is it like Thea? Theta? I could be totally wrong.
Clea.
All right.
Yeah.
I was nowhere near close. So.
At least that's what the name is according to IMDb.
Yes. No. That makes sense. Right.
Yeah, and I guess and she has something to do with Dormammu, and you sort of see.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part of it.
Yeah. Like I mean, like I don't know. Somehow she's related to Dormammu from in the comics, and
right.
And when she opens that portal and they sort of go through it in the scene. You see sort of what it looked like from the first movie there.
Yes, yeah, that it looks like that dimension, that realm, that world, whatever it was. Right. And then she said to him that she said, "Stephen, you've caused an incursion, and now we're going to go fix it, basically."
Right.
And so one of the interesting things was the phrase or the word incursion, because that's when the two universes basically smash into each other, and only one survives.
Right.
And apparently that is what happened in the Secret Wars comics, is that there were all these incursions going on. And so there's a lot of people theorizing that that's where this is going now, that we're going to go, it's going to go to Secret Wars, and there's going to be basically these huge universal battles because each universe is fighting for its own survival type of thing.
Right. So, and I was actually going to ask you about, have you ever read Secret Wars?
I think I did a long time ago.
Okay.
Well, there was an original Secret Wars, which was like in the 80s. And I never read that. I don't remember. I know it was a big crossover for Marvel, but I don't remember what the premise was, other than they just had a bunch of characters fighting. But then they sort of did like a new version of it in the modern times. And that's when they had these universes colliding and these incursions. And I think that's, if you're familiar with the comics, they used to have, the Marvel universe, and then they had the Ultimates universe, which is where Miles Morales was from.
Okay.
And during Secret Wars, there's an incursion, and those two universes smashed together. And instead of one of them being destroyed, they kind of like merged together. And that's how they brought Miles and some of the other characters from the Ultimates universe into the Marvel universe.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah. Because I'm totally unfamiliar with the Secret Wars and all this, but I know that I just what I've read over the last couple of days, that it's almost like that's how Kang plays into all of this too, because you sort of had like in Loki, that's one of the things he explains at the end of that show is why there's a sacred timeline now, right? Because all these universes were sort of like battling because they wanted to be the one to survive, right?
Right.
And that's how. So then they created the sacred timeline so that there was only going to be one universe, and there wouldn't be all this, right? And so that kind of plays into all this too. And I'll be honest, like I really expected to get Kang in this movie.
Yeah.
That's where I thought this is where he's going to enter the MC. I mean, we saw him in Loki, but I was like, this is where he starts becoming a threat. That's what I thought.
Right.
So I was sort of surprised we didn't get him, but I thought it was really interesting that a lot of the stuff that goes on here sort of is is basically what Kang said was going to happen in Loki, right?
That's true. And I hadn't thought of that aspect of it, right? Yeah, basically, right. He's like, it was chaos before I created this prime timeline,
right?
And if you kill me, it's going to go back to chaos. And guess what? Now we're seeing it's going back to chaos again, and everybody. Yeah, that's interesting. I almost wish there was a more a firmer tie-in with Loki. Like, it would have been neat to have Kang show up somehow, or just sort of to say like, hey, listen, when they killed off He Who Remained and unleashed all these other timelines, and which became the multiverse or whatever, it would have been neat to see that somehow tied in. And maybe we'll get that at a future date. Maybe they didn't feel like they needed to, because it's kind of, I guess it's obvious if you're following along that that's what happened, but it would have been neat to, I think I would have liked something like that.
Yeah. And that's and that's kind of what I was looking, I get that's one of the things I was looking for in this movie was him, but I guess maybe we're going to get more of him in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Right, because he's the big bad in that movie, supposedly.
That's what they're saying, right? So yeah, maybe that'll be it then.
So I just think it's real. Like, I really like where they're going with all this, right? And how, the multiverse stuff I think is really interesting, and I like how they sort of introduced it a little bit, and gave us a little bit of it in WandaVision. They give us a little bit of it in Loki, and then Spider-Man and this, and I think it's really cool how they're just kind of like dripping it in there,
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that a lot. Spider-Man was super fun just to see, and it worked out perfectly for that movie, just to see all those other versions. And in this one here, now they're starting to have some fun with it too, like the whole Illuminati from, what was that, Earth 8 something or whatever it was,
818.
Maybe that was it.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, but so that was, for me, that was the highlight of the movie, was the alternate or whatever their version of the Illuminati was. That was so much fun seeing.
Yeah.
I forget the order they introduced him in, but I was John Krasinski.
Yeah.
As Mr. Fantastic. That was just fantastic. That was fantastic. I mean, I was really excited by that. Because people have been fan casting him for a long time, but I actually also like the guy. Like, he was obviously on The Office as Jim, but he's been in other movies, and he's on he's Jack Ryan on the Amazon show, and so he's a good actor. It's not like it's not like they're just pulling this guy out of nowhere.
Right.
I it was fun, his cameo, and they turned him into string cheese or whatever they did. They it was horrible, but they pulled it out.
That scene was particularly brutal.
Right.
I was just like, wow, there were some moments in that in that battle with Wanda.
Right. I mean, they just wiped them out. In terms of Mr. Fantastic, I hope they can bring him back for the Fantastic Four movie. I know they just pushed that back further, but I hope they can bring him in and do that, because I really did enjoy him as that character.
Yeah.
But as for everybody else, it was fun to see them bring back, obviously Patrick Stewart as Professor X.
Yeah.
As a variant of him. That was fun. And it surprised me to see Black Bolt. They brought back Anson Mount, right?
Yeah.
And because he was Black Bolt in the horrible Inhumans TV show, and I thought Marvel had totally disowned it. So when they brought him back as that, I thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool that they're they might not have truly acknowledged the show, but they'll they'll bring him back, because he was good though. So that was a lot of fun. What's this here?
John's gold. It's the biggest treasure that's never been found.
Nope.
I'm not sure what happened there.
That's all right. We got some sound. We got some sound.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. I was surprised they brought him back. I was kind of. I mean, the rumor was that we were going to see Tom Cruise as Iron Man, which I was like, oh, let's get that, but it didn't happen. But that's all right. I wasn't like disappointed or anything, which is
right.
Really neat.
They would have had to move to, I guess, for him to do a cameo like that, there would have had to be some like heavy duty lifting behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like where these other guys are, mid tier, where they're like, yeah, I can come in and do that or whatever. Whereas Tom Cruise, I think to get him to come do a cameo, I think that would take a lot.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think it means to have, do you think it means anything that we've got, Patrick Stewart, and we've got John Krasinski? I mean, are we good? Is this like?
I think if I know the Fantastic Four movie's coming, I would like to think that this was a teaser and that they will use John Krasinski for that movie.
Yeah,
and who I mean, what's his wife's name? In real life, his I
can't remember.
Emily Blunt.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes,
okay.
Emily Blunt.
So there was rumors that she might be the Invisible Woman, and so that'd be kind of fun to have her as that character. And then the Thing and Human Torch could be anybody. They could have some fun. But so yes, I would like to think that's a teaser for the Fantastic Four movie. Patrick Stewart, it was great to have him back. He had sort of already wrapped up the X-Men movies, because in Logan, spoilers for Logan, but Professor X dies in Logan.
Yeah,
and so I think that was just more of like fun fan service. They're like, look, Patrick Stewart's around. He's willing to come in. Let's do this. If they do relaunch and do something with the X-Men in the main universe, I think they'll have to go with either somebody brand new or what's his name, James McAvoy. Is that right? Is that the other guy?
I think that's his. I think that's him. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then I'm not sure about Black Bolt, if they would bring him back, if they would, I'm not sure if they have plans for the Inhumans or not, if it was just a fun Easter egg or if maybe there are plans down the road. I did read today that they talked about using Namor as one of the Illuminati, but they didn't want to wreck because he's going to be in a future show, which everyone is heavily hinting that's going to be the Black Panther sequel, that he's kind of going to be the bad guy. Yeah, they're hinting that he might be the bad guy in that.
Oh, I did not know that.
Okay, he's right. So, and that's a rumor. I can't. I mean, possible spoilers. I don't know. Yeah,
they gotta bring him in at some. I mean, like initially I was like, oh, they'll never do him, but I'm like, they brought in all these other characters. Like, why not?
Yeah. The only thing with him is that his rights were owned by, out of everybody, like, I think he was one of the last holdouts. Like him and the Hulk were technically still owned by like Universal or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And I believe they straightened Namor out to or they made a deal or whatever it is now. I think he's back. So I think the only one outstanding now, as far as I know, is the Hulk. Just can't have his own movie right now because of
that's there's a weird thing that he can't. Yeah. He can be in other movies, but he can't have his own movie.
So Marvel's like, whatever at this point, we'll put him in every other movie.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then they also had Captain Carter, who was straight from the cartoon, the What If cartoon, she was fun to see. I was happy to see her. And who else? Oh, they had the other
Captain Marvel.
Right, they had the other Captain Marvel, and that was fun too because just to bring I forget her name, but to give her a shot at being Captain Marvel was kind of fun.
Yeah,
because her daughter gets to be. We assume her daughter in the Marvels movie, Monica Rambeau, which is her daughter, will be a version of Captain Marvel there. So, it's neat to bring her back. I forget what her name was, but it's neat.
Yeah, it ends up being, what is it, Photon, or what is it? Is that her character
I think,
name or whatever?
Yeah, I think that's what she ends up being called, as Photon. I think it's changed several times over the years in the comics because, like, she was truly Ms. Marvel at one point, and then they use her. I think they always just revamp her and try to use different things to see what sticks. That unfortunately happens a lot of times with different characters like that. They never know what to do with them, and then they just have when you look at their history, like, wow, this character's had a lot of different superhero names.
What did you think? Like America Chavez, I'm not totally familiar with that character. I mean, is she any? I mean, have you come across her as you've been reading comics? Or
the only thing
familiar with her?
The only thing I know is I know she's considered a young Avenger. And so they were saying by introducing her here, and you have Kate Bishop and Wanda's children, and in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the old I forget his name, but the old original Black Captain America.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Isaiah.
Yes.
Something. Or Isaac something. I don't remember.
But then his grandson was floating around.
Yes.
So his grandson has the same name as a superhero called Patriot, which is a Captain America type of hero.
Oh, okay.
So they're saying like all these people, all these characters are sort of in place to be to be the Young Avengers. I feel like there was somebody else, but I don't think it was.
Is it Black Widow's sister?
I can't remember if I was going to say her, but I can't remember if she's
Okay.
on the and on their team or not. I can't remember that part of it.
All right.
So, but yeah, so that's all I really know about her. I mean, not for anything. I really feel like we didn't get to know her very well in the movie.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
She was there and she had her superpower, but she was just kind of like the MacGuffin of the movie. That's what everybody was chasing.
Yeah.
And, she seemed nice, but I don't know, like we really didn't learn that much about her other than she unintentionally killed her parents and has been kind of bouncing universe to universe ever since,
Yeah. And like Doctor Strange has this weird like he's like adopting all these like kids, Peter Parker and
right.
He's like got like a little yeah, it was funny though after the movie my we all saw together, my wife was like, well, what's her superhero name? And I was like, I think that's her superhero, like it's just America Chavez, right? Like she doesn't have
I think you're right.
An alias, right?
Yeah. Not that I remember. I mean, maybe she does, but I can't. I've never heard one. People just call her by her name.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it was pretty neat. We have on the YouTube thing, we have the trailer playing, but right now it's just the still image here of it's Doctor Strange when he inhabits his a dead version of himself, and he's basically zombie Doctor Strange. And that was really clever, and that was pretty cool how they did that. I think a lot of people in the trailer saw Zombie Strange and thought we were going to get the zombie universe from the What If series.
Yeah.
And so again, I wasn't disappointed, you know what I mean? Because I enjoyed what we got, but I was just like, I'm like, oh, this isn't what I thought I was getting. I really thought the What If show was going to lead a lot more into it. I thought we were going to see a lot more connections there.
Yeah, I did too. I thought there would be more connections to other things. I thought and it was fine. I'm thrilled with what we got. Like I thought it was a really good movie. But yeah, it just went a different direction than I expected it to go. So, like the zombie, the zombie Doctor Strange, he's in it quite a bit. Like he's he's a big part of the ending.
That's like the whole third act, isn't he? Like Zombie Strange.
Yeah.
That was cool though. I thought that was fun. And then like in the picture, he's got were they demons or what? They came at him and then he absorbs them, and then that's whose arms you see behind him there.
Yeah, right.
I forget, they weren't from the Darkhold, were they?
I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever happened, I just remember being like, this is cool. Like with when all the arms were just spinning around behind him, I thought that was neat.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should. The other thing we should talk about is the ending. Is Wanda, like, what happens there, right? Like, does she? She destroys supposedly she destroys the Darkhold in all the universes, right? But and then she collapses that temple.
The tower comes down, and then while it's collapsing, you see like of her red energy.
Right.
So does that mean she was
destroyed? Is our Wanda dead?
Right. Or did she teleport herself out of there?
Yeah.
So I guess that's open for interpretation, until we see her next time,
Yeah.
So I would hope, I mean, if she was a true villain, it would have been a nice send-off just to be like, okay, but because she's not a true villain and because we've all come to like care about her, I would like to think that maybe she's like, all right, I destroyed the Darkhold across the universe, and now I'm gonna, bloop, I'll go and lay low for quite a while or whatever,
Yeah, I can't imagine she's like and that's what I told my wife and kids. I was like, look, we didn't even see a body. There's no way she's dead.
Yeah, I think if they wanted her, if they wanted her to be dead, it'd be very clear.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man, he died,
right.
Whereas Captain America, they're not saying, and I don't know if they're hoping that maybe Chris Evans will come back some point, or like they're being so vague over there that it's almost irritating. You're just kind of like, what happened with Captain America? Like, you know what I mean? It's great to say. You know, I'm glad the Falcon took over the role. That's all awesome. But like, you know, show somebody.
Well, I think they're saving him for like if they do Secret Wars, because I mean, theoretically, if I understand this correctly, in Secret Wars, you can have an Avengers team fighting an Avengers team, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Right.
So you could have a Chris Evans Captain America fighting a Sam Wilson Captain America. Right.
They could bring back Robert Downey Jr. if they wanted to as an alternate Tony Stark. I mean, they could bring in, they could have, you know, anybody under the sun. You know what I mean? They could just bring in everybody and anybody. So I'm just surprised in the main universe that they haven't officially said what happened to him yet.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe they're holding out hope. I mean, you know, he's still a young guy. He could always, you know, he's come back, or maybe they're saving it for a surprise, or were they joking around? Oh, he's on the moon. You know,
yeah,
so
right.
Pretty funny to be, you know, and yeah. So who knows?
They're going to bring him back in some fashion, even if it's just a cameo or something like. He's coming back.
I wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's almost it'd be too good not to. You know.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else for Doctor Strange. I mean, you know, overall, yeah, it was. I did enjoy it. Like I said, thought it was a little bit different. I guess his I can't remember her name. His girlfriend.
Christine Palmer.
That's it. So I guess in the main universe, you know, she's married now. So I guess that's off the table in the main universe. And you know, perhaps a multiverse, Christine Palmer might be you know, somebody he could hook up with, type of thing. But I seem to think I read somewhere that Cleo and him have some sort of romantic down the road. So the spoilers for possible future movies, I think that they might end up having something going on.
Yeah, I read that she is, because I had no idea when she showed up. I was like, I have no idea who this character is. So I sort of read up on her a little bit, and that apparently they get married at some point.
Oh, okay.
In the comics. So
yeah,
I don't know if they'll go that direction here or not, but that's a thing in the comics. So
yeah. The other thing I read is I think I read that she eventually takes over for him as Sorcerer Supreme.
Oh, really?
I think I read that somewhere too. So, yeah, maybe she's got to take over for Wong, you know,
right?
since he's still technically Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah. I don't really know what else. I mean, I think we hit all the big things. I really liked it. I thought it was good. I mean, and like I said, it's just all kinds of possibilities for the Marvel universe, which is always exciting.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and then the next after this is movie wise is Thor: Love and Thunder. When we saw the trailer for that, and we talked about that last time. But so that's I'm excited to see what comes of that, and then and then I guess that wraps up. God, what would you say? I've
actually been reading that comic series.
That's right. You mentioned that.
And I'm really enjoying it. It's pretty good. I forget how many books it is, but you know, I've seen there's that one scene that's in the trailer that they said was directly from the comic. It absolutely, you know, and so I've read that book.
Oh, with like the snow beast, like all right, yeah.
Really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's a really good series. So I'm curious to see. It's a little. It's one of those comic booky things where it's a little out there, and you're like, "What is happening?" You know. And,
yeah, right.
But it's good. I'm enjoying it.
That's good. That's cool. Then, do they explain? So is Jane Foster?
I haven't gotten there yet, so I don't know if that happened. That happens later or not, but I haven't gotten there.
That's what I'm curious, because I obviously I saw the artwork when all that happened in the comics, but I don't have any knowledge of how she gets the power of Thor. I have so I'm curious to see. I want to know how that happens. It's one of those things in my head. I'm like, I'd like to read those comics, but now with the movie, I'm like, well, I'm curious how they're going to handle that in the movie and stuff too.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Good. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that then next. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So do we have anything else for Doctor Strange? We want to wrap it up?
Yeah. So I'd give it a thumbs up. You know. in layman's terms. A lot of thumbs up. And then, it's continuing with Marvel. I guess we roll over to Moon Knight, right?
Yes, I think that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
That's Doctor Strange.
There you go. Yeah. So what'd you think of? So we saw. I guess since the last show, we've got 2 new episodes of Moon Knight, including the finale. So, what did you think of now that we've seen the whole thing?
Now that we've seen the whole show, so I really, I guess I'll review the whole show basically. But, overall, I really enjoyed the show. I liked. I feel like it's been a little while since we had like a true origin story in the Marvel universe because, everything's rolling now. So you don't really have to, so I enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting to know both Steven and Mark Spector. And, I liked how they sort of set it up where it's like he didn't know what was going on and kind of brought us along for that ride. So I enjoyed all that of it. And then the last episode we reviewed at the very end, it looks like that Moon Knight had been killed and they wake up in the mental institution, and it turns out, and it's never quite clear, but that is like another realm, I guess. Yeah. And then they run into the hippo, who is a goddess, and I can't remember her name, but then
Tawada or something like that.
Yeah. Tawadi.
Yeah, something like that.
But then it's her job to take, in I guess an Egyptian lore, her job is to take the deceased on a boat ride, and if you're worthy you make it to the end, and if you're not you get pulled overboard by the sand zombies. And I'm probably butchering their poor religion.
No, but I think that was essentially like it's Tawart, whatever that is. Tawart.
Okay. All right.
I know. Anyway, but she is the goddess of like the afterlife or something like that, and she ferries you to the promised land or whatever whatever it is in their religion, right?
Okay.
And so that whole episode is like them, like that whole episode is like them getting to, and actually Mark gets there.
Yeah.
Right. Mark, they Steven falls overboard on the ship, and he, becomes part of the sand or whatever.
Right.
And Mark, and then the scales balance out, and Mark can actually go to the promised land, but he sort of says, "No, I'm going to go back for Steven." And so, and that I thought that whole episode, it was really kind of a mind trip, but it was good. Like I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked the whole interaction between Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and like that, I thought that was just really good. And then you sort of get Mark's backstory, right? Like how Stephen comes to be, right?
Yeah. Was that was in that same episode,
or was that in the finale? I don't remember.
I can't remember. But yes, I'd forgotten not that I forgot about his backstory, but I forgot that's where we learned that.
Yeah.
That was really good to see that. Okay, this is there's an origin to this, his split personality. There's a reason he's got I guess it's a mental illness basically, and there's a reason he has this because of this trauma he suffered when he was younger, and his brain created that other personality to cope. Yeah. And
I thought that was really interesting, like because it sort of ties it all together and it makes it make sense. And I really liked. I mean, I can't say enough about Oscar Isaac in this show.
Yes,
like he sells it, man. Like, you really buy that these are two completely different.
It's
people,
crazy,
right?
Isn't it? Right?
I mean, and he sells it. I mean, he did a really, really good job.
He really did. I mean, him. I mean, his acting, and then even the effects. Like, he's like arguing with himself, and he's selling it, and the effects. You never stop to think like this is the same guy. Like, what I mean? Like,
right.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So it was. I really enjoyed all that. That was really, really, really clever. I was gonna say, what was I gonna say now? I blanked on my thought. My alarm went off.
Distracted you.
I did know. I was going to get into the end, and then so with the final episode, we find out that Well, first of all, I guess we meet the Scarlet Scarab,
Yes.
who is, what's her name?
It's Layla El-Falubi.
Okay, so right, his wife is Layla,
Yeah.
right? And so, and then she becomes the avatar for,
Tawada or Tawada. Yeah, she's or however. Yeah, I know. Bear with us.
Right.
We're I don't know.
We're trying.
We're trying. We do what we can.
I'm terrible with anything like that. Yeah. So she becomes the avatar for her.
Yes.
And like, so she's very, very, very loosely based on a character from the comics. I think the character in the comics was a man, and I think that's pretty much, other than the name, I think that's the end of the extent of their connections.
Okay.
But man, she was awesome. I really liked her.
Yeah.
I liked her. I liked the actress. But I liked her character, and I really liked her superhero suit. And I thought she was really badass. I liked that a lot.
I really liked that. She ends up as like a superhero out of this whole thing. So too, I mean, it just really, it'll be interesting to see how that all sort of plays, because Mark, is the avatar for Khonshu, and Khonshu is sort of manipulative, right? Like, he sort of manipulates Mark to get kind of what he wants. I don't know that her god is
right.
Her goddess is going to be quite as smarmy as Khonshu is, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
and that's funny that you say that about Khonshu, because at the very end, we find out that Mark's third personality that it was hinted at, but we were never 100% sure, that basically he's now Khonshu's avatar, right?
Yeah.
And what was his name again?
It ends up being that is.
I'm blanking right now.
I can't think of his name.
Loxley? Is that right?
Yes. Is that his last name? But it's a third personality.
Right.
Now this is because this is from the comic, right? Like he's got these three personalities, but like in the show, it seems like now in the comic, he was always just more street savvy guy.
Okay.
He was not necessarily an assassin,
right?
Which is what it looks like the direction the show is going.
Right.
So it's I think that's a really cool take. And what I really thought was cool was that like in the limo, and they're driving away, and Khonshu's talking to Harrow, and he's like, Mark has no idea how sick he is, and he's like, he thought all this time I wanted Layla as my avatar, and he's like, why would I ever want anybody else? I've got everything I want here, right? Like,
right,
because Mark is so broken. I just thought that was it just sort of shows how manipulative Khonshu is. I think that and I'm excited about where this. I loved this character. I knew nothing about Moon Knight. I mean, I read a couple of comics before the show just to kind of familiarize myself with him. But man, I'm totally into Moon Knight now. I like this character a lot.
Me too. And it was again, it was a lot of fun meeting somebody brand new like that. Everybody else has been. It's not a bad thing. I obviously love the MCU and all the characters that we've come to know all this time, but it was really neat to just see somebody new, and there weren't really any tie-ins with anything else. It kind of existed on its own, and I was reading some articles and stuff about that, but I'm kind of glad they made that decision, because it didn't need anything like that,
Yeah, it just sort of. I like that it's its own thing right now. Like I do want to see him.
Right.
Like I really want to see Moon Knight interact with other characters and stuff like that. But like for this show, for this season, I was totally cool with just him doing his own thing, and being its own thing.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see where it goes, because as of right now, there isn't season 2 announced. Now, I don't know if that's something they're holding on to and they'll announce later. I don't know if they had a movie planned later, if there's something like that, because I know they want to really go back and forth and have a lot of crossover like that. There's some rumors about a Midnight Suns type of movie where it's like Moon Knight and Doctor Strange and possibly Ghost Rider, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other characters, but like some Blade, like some darker characters.
I had read that there was some thought that he might tie into I can't think of the actor's name. Jon Snow at the end of Eternals, which is the Black Knight.
Black Knight, yeah.
I can't think of the actor's name, but I had heard, Kit Harington. I had heard there was some speculation that they might tie in together somehow.
That would be kind of that could be interesting too. Yeah, it's funny. Whereas like the first couple phases, everything that led to Endgame, I felt were more linear. You know what I mean? Like all the movies, everybody had their adventures, but there was that through line that was pretty linear. Whereas now I feel like everything's kind of like all over the place. Like you have the multiverse, and then you have like the Moon Knight, but then there's kind of slipping Blade in there under you, and then you have the Eternals are out in space, and it seems like there's like a lot more going on. I'd be curious to see if it's going to wrap up in one big giant and another end game type of thing, or if it's going to be like all right, this is the multiverse arc and we're going to wrap that up over here, and then whatever else will be over here, if it'll be more like that.
I mean, I wonder if that's not if they go in that direction. Like, like these characters are going to deal with the multiverse. These characters aren't going to have anything to do with that Secret War thing. They're going to be doing their own thing.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of like magic stuff now. Sort of, I guess Moon Knight, you could sort of say he's kind of magic-y.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that was another thing I found interesting. So like, Moon Knight is, his powers come from the Egyptian gods, or a Egyptian god. Whereas Thor, they positioned him as although he's from the Norse mythology, but they positioned him as an alien from another planet.
Right.
So I will be curious, again, like it's like, all right, well, that's interesting. So how are you gonna, how are you going to tie all that? Like, how does that work? I'm just, it'd be neat to see, if Thor met Moon Knight, it'd be really, well, as a matter of fact, in Love and Thunder, they show that he's going to run into Zeus,
Right.
And so that'll be another thing. It's like, well, wait, all right. So what's Zeus now? Is Zeus a Greek god that lives on Earth? Is he another, is he on his version of Asgard or Olympus or whatever they call that? So it'll just be, and it'd be neat to see how they handle all that.
And you know what? I didn't think about this until just a second. Like we know that the bad guy in Thor is Gore the God Butcher.
Oh,
right. And Khonshu is a god. Tawara is a god, right? So is that gonna, is there gonna be some tie in there? I don't know. I'm just thinking it's, if we're talking gods, right?
Yeah, that could start a whole nother, right? That could start a whole nother, another storyline basically, Oh, interesting. That could be neat.
Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, I mean, I don't really know what else. I really enjoyed this show a lot. In fact, like I would say, I'm trying to think of I mean, I've enjoyed all of the Marvel shows that have been on Disney Plus so far. I think this is probably one of at least my top two.
Yeah, I would agree.
I really liked Loki, and I really like WandaVision, Loki, and Moon Knight, I think, are my top three that we've seen.
Yeah, and I know I'm trying to think. I've been seeing people rating them and all that stuff. I think right now, anyway, I think Moon Knight might be my favorite, only because I didn't spend the whole time wondering, how does this fit into everything?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for what it was. It's just like a straightforward, here's the show and here's our character. And, as much as I love the MCU and I love all the stuff tying in with each other, this was kind of refreshing after a year of all these other shows tying into stuff, just to be like, nope, it's just a show,
Right. We're
just going to tell you. Yeah. So as of right now, anyway, I'll say this is my favorite. So I will be curious to see how they go forward, because next we get Ms. Marvel, and then after Ms. Marvel, I think we get She-Hulk. Is that right?
Yes. I'm so lost now. I used to have it all.
Know. Well, then they shuffle things. They've been shuffling things around.
Right, and then you're right, and then everything got delayed, and then they shuffled stuff, and now
I definitely know Ms. Marvel is next. So because I've seen been seeing a lot of ads and promotion for that. So that'll be the next one. So that'll be neat because it'll be a new character, but they'll be setting her up for the Marvels movie. So that'll be neat to see. Just out of curiosity. Now I'll be curious. That show seems like it's going to be different in terms of, like, I almost feels, I don't want to say it's a kid's show, but it seems like it might be more kid friendly.
Yeah,
much more than Moon Knight was.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
So, but it'll be neat to see where it goes and how they handle that too. So,
and when is that coming? I don't even know when that's coming.
I want to say it's like, what's it, May now? I want to say it might be the end of May.
Oh wow, there's a lot coming out the next month or so.
Every time I see something, I'm like, wait, when's that coming out?
Yeah.
Here, let me just see here real quick. Ms. Marvel, June 8th. This is Ms. Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then by coincidence, I had She-Hulk here, but it just says 2022. So they don't have a date for that yet.
Oh, okay. It'll probably fall.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine too. So,
interesting.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Good
Anything
stuff.
else for Moon Knight or Marvel?
Not that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's where I'm at too. So, all right. What do we got next? Then, do we have? Is it Star Wars or Star Trek?
If I can get this thing to work, right? Wait, it's Star Wars.
There we go. All right. So we had May the 4th came this year, Star Wars Day. It was very exciting when we got our first full Obi Wan Kenobi trailer.
Yes,
which looks good. I was very excited about this.
I was really into it. We got the announcement, and I'm excited about the show. Like, it's so, it's so good. Like, they tie in the music and everything, and it's just like, right. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It really looks good. I'm looking forward to seeing Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi again. Definitely.
Me too. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing him. Looking forward to seeing him. They've been showing a lot of the Inquisitors, and I think I said this before, but I wasn't too impressed with them initially. But I don't know if I'm getting used to seeing them or if their design is better. But I'm liking the looks of them. We're playing the trailer here. I don't know if you noticed, but that was I'm going to call him by his old name. That looked like Zuckuss, didn't it? In the on the rooftop. So you back in the day, they mixed the action figures names up, and 4LM and Zuckuss are forever entwined now because to me the robot is Zuckuss, but it really should have been 4LM. Anyway, in the trailer, everyone's like, that's 4LM. That's him on the rooftop. Everybody's getting all excited about that. So.
Yeah.
And of course, I word on. I'm like, are you sure that looks like Zuckuss to me?
She's got to be prod.
Got to be the old man in there, prod and.
Hey, look, I maintain, and I've said this for a long time. Kenner was canon, right? Like that was when we were growing up. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have news groups. We didn't have any of that. It was just Kenner.
If Kenner called it that. But that's how we learned everybody's name. I don't think they, all like the Ewoks. Well, I don't think they even in the movie. I don't think they ever said the word Ewok. You know what I mean? Like that's just how you learned all that stuff.
That's why it's an AT-AT. It's not an AT-AT.
Exactly.
It's an AT-AT.
Right. I think they said that in the commercials. Man, that's stuck.
That's stuck. Right.
That's funny. So, but this show's looking really good. And of course, the big thing here is they show part of Vader being like, looks like they attaching his arm, and they put his chest plate on. You hear the breathing start and stuff, and so they've really been talking Vader up a lot more lately. And I just saw a thing where I guess they were at some premiere, and it was Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and two other people were there, but I can't. The one was the Inquisitor. I don't know the actress's name, but she plays the Inquisitor, the Reva. I think that's her name.
Okay.
and one other actor actresses. I can't picture the fourth person, but so they're starting to make the rounds, and I guess they're really talking up Darth Vader being in this, so that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I was actually that Vader stuff was interesting because I saw them putting on the chest plate and all this other stuff, and I was actually sort of thinking about all this, like what might the story be and that kind of stuff, and and in my head I was like, what, it does make sense to do something like this, like because I know some people are like, oh, Obi Wan Kenobi, he just stayed on Tatooine, and I thought that for a long time. I know he's got to stay there and look over Luke, but I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, it would be pretty harsh for Obi-Wan to be like, you know what, I'm done, let the kid handle it. Right? You know what I'm saying? And I guess this is his, like, this story, what may be Obi-Wan saying, I have to take care of this so that when Luke comes of age, he can just restart the Jedi Order. He's the new hope, right?
Right.
But it would be sort of harsh to be like, I'm not gonna worry about it. Let the kid handle it,
Right. So well, that's right. That we kind of always said that about in kidding around, but you're like, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda goes hides on Dagobah, and Obi-Wan goes hides on Tatooine, and that's it. Yeah. And in your head you're like, that's what happened, that's how it is. But then you're like, that's kind of lame. Like, why would they just go hide like that and not try to do anything?
Right. Like, I'm gonna let the kid whose father is taking over the universe, I'm gonna let him go and like fight. Because Yoda says one thing remains: you have to fight Vader, right?
Right.
And it would just be kind of a crappy move to be like, oh well. We're just going to sit back here and hide. You go take care of that for us.
Yeah, right. We trained you. You go ahead. You go
So I in my head I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that Obi-Wan would try to do something.
So, you're right.
Clearly, I think we know whatever he's trying here doesn't work.
Right.
Because we get a New Hope. So
right. Unless like we were kind of saying before, unless his whole thing is he has to leave Luke to somehow protect Leia.
Right.
Maybe that'll be like, maybe the story is more going to be about, they're heavily hinting that it's him coming to terms with the fact that he lost Anakin and became Darth Vader. Like,
yeah.
But also maybe that'll be the victory of it, is like, I failed massively in training Anakin, but I was able to protect his daughter, or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? It could be like that, where it's like, yes, he lost, but here's a neat story, and kind of end on a hopeful note or something like that.
Yeah, and how about Uncle Owen throwing some shade at Obi-Wan,
right? That was awesome.
Like, I was like, that's a good line, man.
That was awesome, and it warranted, because like, I mean, in the first movie, before anything else, he's like, he's all crotchety, and he's like, stay away from that old man, and like, also he's just concerned, he's concerned for Luke, which technically isn't even related to him, right?
Right.
Or wait, that's his?
I guess it's his, maybe a cousin or something. I don't know, because or like a half cousin, because Anakin's mother
marries his father.
His father.
Right. So it's like his stepbrother. Luke is his.
Yeah.
Or wait, Anakin's his stepbrother, so it's his step son. No, I don't. Step.
It would be right.
It would truly be his nephew, I guess, but a step.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're right. So, but yeah, I like that, and just like you said, throwing shade at him, he's like, oh, like you trained his father. Oh snap!
Like, Obi-Wan.
I know, right?
Yeah. So after this trailer, and this, I mean, we're showing the trailer on the YouTube channel right now, but like that one scene where I think you hear the breathing, and then Obi-Wan's face is shadowed, and he kind of looks up, and
right. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, I trust in them, but I'm just hoping. I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping, I mean, like, just nothing against Boba Fett, but just, you know, like, I'm just like, well, I thought Boba Fett was going to be a home run and it wasn't. So I'm just kind of like, oh man, I hope they got this figured out. I hope they, you know,
I mean, I know there's people like I didn't hate Boba Fett. I mean, there's people, but it's definitely, it was not a well put together show. I think that's fair criticism, right? Like, it's just the show itself was just sort of all over the place. I mean, you know, and the story wasn't well crafted. You know?
I would have much rather, and we've talked about it, but I would have much rather them had done just, you know, 4 episodes or whatever of just Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And then, you know, even if they gave us like a little half season of Mandalorian or you know what I mean, like, or given us an extended season of Mandalorian, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I think it just really threw everybody when all of a sudden you're watching Book of Boba Fett and we're basically having Mandalorian episodes.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if you knew going in, it just threw you off that abrupt of a you know, story change, you know. And the one episode didn't bother me as much because the one was all about Mandalorian, and you're like, okay, you know. And at the end, he comes and like ends up on Tatooine, so you're like, all right, well, we're just catching up with him. But then the whole next episode's like with like Luke and Ahsoka and Baby Yoda, and, you know, and you're just kind of like, all right, guys, you know, like, what happened here? Yeah,
it feels like even they didn't have enough story for the show. Like, that's kind of, that's what it feels like now. Whether it was always planned that way or not, but that's the way it feels. The way when you watch it is like, well, we don't have enough here. We gotta do something, you know.
Yeah, I know. So hopefully they figured it out. I know, like they said, I know they went back and rewrote a lot of the scripts on this to make it a little bit more, you know, a little bit more different than the Mandalorian, because I guess a lot of it was just like the you know, the lone gunman in the like Obi Wan was more of like the, you know, like more of a Western type of thing.
Yeah.
And because of the Mandalorian, they went in and changed it around. And I think that by doing that, I think they made it a bigger story. When I think I don't know if that's when they brought in Vader, but I begin to think that may be when they said, let's tell a story. Let's tell a big story.
This is what people would see. Let's do this.
Right.
You know? Right.
You know, and maybe that's one of the lessons they learned with the Boba Fett too, where they were trying something new. And unfortunately, everyone's like, but wait, this isn't Boba Fett. You know? So, but see, now Boba Fett, they also, we said this too, is they had the whole Mandalorian. So it's like, well, anything you would have done with Boba Fett, you've already done with the Mandalorian. So they had to make him different. But, you know, maybe they should have, unfortunately, maybe they could have just left him in the pit.
It's probably better off just not doing anything with it.
I feel bad saying that because it wasn't bad. I did enjoy it, but you know, it just
there were moments. There were moments that were really good, and you know, but it just, the stories just,
it was
it's just all over the place, and I you know, it's, and I don't feel like you really see him very, like in the end, like, I mean, it's a story about Boba Fett, but you don't, I mean, those 2 episodes aside, even when the episodes he was in, he always sort of felt overshadowed by other things that were going on, like, you know,
right. Yeah, he should, right. I mean, yes. Like,
the best part of that, I think the best part of that show was when he was with the Tuskens. That's when he sort of really shined. And then after that, it just sort of like, I feel like they didn't know what to do with him.
Right, like the whole wannabe gangster thing was right, that was odd because you had the whole like fake out with like the Hutt twins, and then, you know, then the Pikes show up, and then before you know it, then we're off on a Mandalorian adventure.
Yeah.
You know, and then finally at the end, I almost would have rather, not for anything, I mean, I did enjoy the Mandalorian episode, and I enjoyed the final episode, but like, I think the final episode would have been better if the Mandalorian hadn't been part of it. Yeah. You know, like, let Boba Fett go and let him stand on his own, but instead you bring the Mando in, and listen, I like the Mandalorian a lot, and I was all about, you know, it's all great, but I really felt like he was overshadowing Boba Fett at the start of the show, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so anyway, we got off on a tangent there about Boba Fett, but we're looking forward to Obi Wan Kenobi.
Yes. I'm confident Obi Wan Kenobi will be better. I mean, they know what they're dealing with here. They, you know, it's important, so I think they're gonna treat it well.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah.
So all right, that's on the 27th of this month. So that's a couple weeks.
That's another
away.
one. Another thing coming out this month. All right, let's move on. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah,
from Star Wars.
Yep, that was it for Star Wars news. I don't think we learned anything else on May the 4th. I don't think they told us anything else. So
yeah,
that was the big standout.
The next thing up was we had started the finale of Star Trek Picard.
Right.
And we had sort of talked about how this show had sort of gone off the rails in our last episode, and kind of hoping that it would get back on track, but it
didn't.
It did. Yeah, it did. So
yeah, I mean, I don't really know where to start, because I mean, it basically what I'll say, and this is for the whole series, is that I wish it had been a 2-hour movie. You know, normally I'm on here saying like, wow, I wish this 2-hour movie was a TV series, and I wanted more, and this and that. Whereas in this case, I'm like, this really could have been a 2-hour movie, and I probably would have loved it.
We really needed a lot less.
yeah, right. I mean, you know, just we're watching the trailer for it now, but I mean, you know, they introduced Guinan, and then you have Guinan from the past, who at the end of the day, I don't think she really did anything. And then, you know, then they bring back old Guinan again at the end, the Laris, and then whatever her Talon, was that her name?
Yeah.
Whatever the Watcher ended up being, like, you know, those characters probably should have been merged together. And, you know, whether it was Guinan or Talon or whatever, like, I don't know why they use the same actress from the future. Like, that bugged me. You know, I mean, Rios and the Borg Queen, and there was just, you know, I feel bad tearing it apart because they tried, but it really, I mean, you could have done a nice 2-hour movie, explored Picard's backstory with his mother, and, you know, and really, I think what we all wanted to see was Q, and we wanted to see what was going on there. And I mean, other than the first and last episode, we don't really get much of Q.
Yeah, it's this, you know, I almost feel like some of the problems with shows, sometimes with shows, I feel like it's a similar problem the Game of Thrones had on a smaller scale, right?
Okay.
Like, they start telling these stories, these big stories, and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when you gotta like bring it in for a landing, it's like, oh, we gotta like 15 plot lines. We gotta climb, you know. And I feel like that's what happened here. Is it just, this story kept getting larger and larger and larger, and then, you know, like halfway through, they were like, oh, we gotta wrap this thing up somehow, and like none of the wrap-ups were really very satisfying. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that. To me, that's like,
no, I agree 100% with you.
You know, and like, I don't, like, I thought the acting was like, I thought Patrick Stewart was really good. I thought all the acting was pretty good, but like it's just the way they brought it all to a close, I just didn't find very satisfying.
No,
you know,
right.
You know, it just seemed everything. You know, it's like you were saying, like when the show started, and I think that like the first like 3 or 4 shows, I don't remember, I thought were really good, right? Like, because you're getting pieces of this mystery, and you're like, oh my goodness, you know, how are they gonna fix the timeline, and what's going on with Q, and you know, like the Borg thing was going on, you know,
right?
So you know, and I was excited about all that, and then they kept adding layers to it, right? And it was, you know, and it was like they never, like, you know, like the whole reason they're there is to make sure that Picard's, you know, ancestor gets on that Mars mission.
Yeah, right.
And that I kind of felt like was wrapped up.
Yeah, after
like
the one
3,
episode,
like in episode like 6 or 7, like after they went to the party,
right,
and he had a conversation with her,
right.
Like
I thought, right, and then he gets hit by the car, saving her, and I thought that was it. I thought she was on her way to space.
Right, and I was like, well, and to me, like I was kind of like, well, I thought this was the big storyline, right, but it wasn't. And then you got Rios and the family, and then Rafi and Seven are chasing after Allison Pill, who's like the Borg Queen now, but it never seemed like it was all that. Like everybody was sort of like, yeah, let them handle it. Like nobody else was really concerned about that.
Right. Yeah, the first half of the season they're chasing Rios. They finally get him back, and then they're like, oh, now we got to go chase the Borg Queen, and it's just sort of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and then I don't know, and then like and then the whole storyline with Sung and his daughter was kind of weird.
Yeah, and I thought it was weird that, and I don't know enough about the history, but like, was the original Sung a bad guy like that? Like, was he that big of a jerk?
Well, honestly, I didn't even know this until I was reading some stuff this week. Apparently, Brent Spiner appeared in Star Trek Enterprise as a Sung.
Oh. Okay.
I never knew that. I found that out this week.
Oh,
so,
interesting.
And I think that character had something to do with the Khan project you see at the end.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But unconfirmed, because like I said, I have not seen all of the Star Trek Enterprise, so I don't know. I can't confirm that myself, but that's what I read. So the Sungs are sort of like, they're always sort of like even Data's creator, which I forget which one it is now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Even he was a little out there. Like he was always a little different. Like he ends up on a planet all by himself, and he creates Data.
Yeah, right. So they're geniuses, and they're just
they're always really eccentric and kind of out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is a little strange that we're seeing all these like Sungs that look exactly like Data. Like that's starting to get a little okay. That said, I like Brent Spiner a lot. I think, and again, I thought Brent Spiner did a great job.
Right.
It was just that the material wasn't great.
It just. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't a tight script. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like you said, it's like it's episodic television, and it's like, well, let's throw this out there. Let's throw this out there. Let's throw this out there. Oh, season's over. And then it's like panic mode, and then they got to start wrapping things up. And I kind of almost felt like even they realized like Rios gets left back in time. They turn Agnes into the Borg Queen, and she's done. And like, I feel like they were writing characters off. By the end, they were writing these guys off, knowing the next season they don't know what to do with them. And knowing that they're going to bring in the other guy, the old.
Well, I think that's part of it, right? Like they know next season you're going to get all these characters that everybody wants to see,
right?
And you're not going to have any time for Rios and Dr. Girardi and like nobody's going to care about them, right?
Yeah, right.
So let's get rid of them. And
I think I read that definitely Rios and Girardi are gone. They're not back for season 3. I think Elnor,
Elnor, I could see coming back,
but I think he even said he's not coming back either.
Oh, really?
I think I read that. So I mean, as far as I know, it's other than Picard, it's 7 of 9 and Rafi as of right now.
Okay.
So and that I guess that could change too. Who knows?
And I really like Jerry Ryan as 7. I thought she did a really good job.
Yeah.
My one little, and this kind of stuff doesn't normally bother me. Like I think it's nitpicky, but I don't want to go full comic book guy from The Simpsons here.
Right.
But this kind of bugged me, right? Okay. And it was when they come back, like Q puts them back on board the Stargazer,
right
at the end, and they're facing the Borg ship, and Rios, who was the captain of Stargazer, gets left, he stays behind,
right?
So technically, Stargazer has no captain. And Picard just like field promotes her to captain of the Stargazer,
right?
And again, I don't want to go like all comic book guy, but like that's not how that stuff works.
Right.
It just can you like so the rest of the crew of the Stargazer is just like, okay, we've been on this ship for however long and serving, and we're like, oh yeah, but by all means, put this woman who's none of us have ever met in charge of the ship, right? She's never been, she's never been in command of a starship. She's never been on board that ship, right? Like,
I mean, really, Picard should have been the one to step in and been like, I'm acting captain, because they're like, where's Rios? And they're like, oh, don't you worry about it. And they're like, no, that's important.
Like that, and again, that's a nitpicky thing, and it's dumb.
But little things like that add up, though, a lot of times. When, just like, you're like, well, all right, the writers wanted her to be promoted to captain.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like things like that, like, it's just nitpicky,
And it's fine. Like, it's like you can get there. Like, what I feel like it is it's lazy writing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? You can get to where you want to go. That was just the easiest way to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's where I just, because I felt the same way on Discovery when they.
Yeah.
Now it was a slight. I guess you could argue it's a slightly different situation, but like when.
They promoted Tilly.
They promoted Tilly to first officer, and she's like an ensign or something like that, and like that just doesn't. Now you can get there if that's what you want to do, but that's not how you do it. Like it's it's lazy writing. That bothers me.
Right. No, and I agree with that. I still say, like, for this one, right, like with Guinan and Talon. I am saying her name right. It is Talon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so, yes.
All right. Like, those two, the roles they played, like, probably could have been the same character.
Yeah.
Like, they were bending over backwards to have Guinan, and I'm like, I would have just been happy to have Whoopi in the beginning and the first and last episode, really.
Yeah.
But they wanted to have her in the past. But then they brought in Talon, but then she's the same actress as the girl, Picard's future girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
But there was no link between them whatsoever. Like, I was waiting for at the end to find out that she was still around guarding our Picard. But there's nothing like that, and I'm just like, well, why use the same actress? Why I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. And I do have to agree. Like, I think in retrospect, young Guinan, well, I was sort of cool. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, right.
I kind of liked it initially, but in retro, after the whole show wraps up, you sort of look back and I'm like, there was really no reason to have young Guinan in there at all.
No,
she really didn't perform any action that somebody else couldn't have taken, right? Like, there was nothing.
I mean, the only thing, she tried. Frankly, it was stupid. She tried to summon Q that at one point.
Right, and it didn't work. I guess it did work in the end.
I mean, I guess it did, but what would prevent Patrick Stewart or Picard from just getting angry and being like, Q, I demand to see you.
Yeah.
And then poof, he just pops up. I mean, that's Q,
Yeah, it was. There was just a lot of. I mean, it's a shame because I really had a lot of hope for the show, and I like I said, I thought it was going to be great. I was really excited about it.
Yeah.
I know. I thought the first 4 episodes or so were really good.
Yeah, and if the whole thing with Picard and his mom and the flashbacks and all that, like, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed finding out, about his history and all that. But, like, it could have been 10 minutes. I mean, it could have been just like It did. It felt very, very drawn out. In hindsight, especially, you're just like, why did it take that long?
Right, and like. I kind of figured out what was going to happen.
It
like
was
I kind of knew,
surprise.
like they drug it out for a really long time, but it was sort of like you kind of knew what was going to happen.
Right.
Long before it happened.
Yeah,
and they
that's
kept
what I mean.
making
I'm
it like this big secret out of it, and it was like, we all know, so
right.
let's get to it.
Right, the writing's on the wall. This poor woman's going to kill herself.
Right.
Like, yeah. So I mean, it would have been much more power. I mean, it'd been much more powerful if that was a true surprise to everybody, or if they'd led with that. That should have been the first sequence, like him opening the door and his mother's hanging there.
Yeah,
like that would have been like really, emotional and very like. Then you could have explored it.
Yeah,
I don't know, but yeah. So unfortunately, a disappointing season of Picard. The one thing we didn't talk about that we should probably discuss is Will Wheaton's return as Wesley Crusher. But what's his name now? The Watcher, he called himself?
Because do you remember that episode at all from Next Generation?
I do, and I at the time remember it seemed like very much like you gotta go. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it was very much like, get this kid out of here now. We're writing him off the show. Apparently in hindsight, Will Wheaton requested to leave the show. Apparently that's what actually went down in real life, because he was having a hard time or something. I guess
I think I remember watching the show from when it aired, and like from the very beginning I was like, I do not like that kid, right and and I think that was because he fell into the whole 1980s, like when there's a kid on the show, this is the role they play, right? Like he's smarter than all the adults, like the adult, but that kind of thing, right?
It was unfortunate.
Yeah. So I think they knew that. They did try to reform him a little bit at some point, and so they had that episode where he kind of like gets kicked out of Starfleet Academy, because somebody ends up getting killed, and because they're doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
And Will Wheaton Wesley wasn't necessarily involved in it, but then he helped cover it up or something like that.
Okay, I know, right.
And that's actually it's probably the best Wesley episode there is.
Right.
It's a very good episode.
Right.
And then so he gets kicked out of Starfleet, and then this Watcher episode comes along. Like the Watcher had been in one of the early seasons.
Okay.
And it was like a heavy Wesley episode. But then they bring him back to sort of invite Wesley to go along with him and be part of the Watcher world or whatever it is. And
so that was actually part of the episode. I wasn't sure how much of the Watcher stuff was tacked on in Picard versus how much of it was from the original episode.
But it was very obscure as to what, like it was never clear what happened,
right,
or where he went or what he was doing. But what's interesting is he did show up in he is in Star Trek Insurrection, which I think is the last film.
He is?
The film where Deanna and Riker get married. He's at the wedding table.
Okay.
In uniform, in a Starfleet uniform.
Oh.
And that's really the last official time you see him. But that was it was really more of a nod. Like I think, because he was on the original series, it was like a nod that he was, it was like a nobody thought there was going to be shows after that kind of thing. So they were like, recipe, and nobody really questioned it, right?
Okay,
but because he shows up again in this show as the Watcher, they're like, well, why was he over there in Insurrection if he's out there being a Watcher? But maybe he got an invitation. Maybe Deanna,
they could have figured it out.
Yeah.
I didn't remember much about that episode. I do remember him going off to become some sort of celestial being type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really, it was very vague. And I just remember being, like I said, like, oh, well, he just got himself right off the show. But like when he pops up here and he's like talking, I'm he's talking on space and time and Watchers and all this. And it almost reminded me of like a Star Trek version of like Doctor Who.
Yeah,
like it kind of had me thinking that way, and I'm like, oh, this is an interesting take on it. But like I said, I didn't remember much about the original episode, so
yeah, and it's an awkward scene to be to be generous. It's like he's all due respect to Will Wheaton, and I like Will Wheaton.
Yes.
Right. Like I like the show he does, and he's a nerd, just like and I have great respect for him. But I think there's a reason you don't see Will Wheaton act any longer.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like that scene was not great.
It was a little uncomfortable, and a little like unnecessary because I'm like
yeah. It was sort of like out of nowhere. It was like all of a sudden you're like, what is happening?
I mean, I guess they felt as if they had to take that. Whatever. It's so that character, the
daughter,
Data,
isn't it Corey? Is that her name?
Is that yes? I guess they felt that they should take her off the board for some reason. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the grand Star Trek universe, like we better take her out of here. Here, I'm thinking that she was going to go on to become one of the first. I've assumed she would go on to become one of the cons, like one of the genetically altered.
Oh, right.
Because I figured eventually he'd genetically alter her and she was saved. And I thought that would be how they would go down that road or something like that. But I don't know. I guess they just figured they should take her off the board. But then I'm like, well, okay, this is, again, totally unnecessary. Why bother with that? Or what are you setting up here? Or like, not for anything, just you could have just killed her off or had her, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt very, for a character that I really wasn't that vested in anyway. I'm like, well, they're going out of their way to save this character.
Yeah. I mean, I was sort of like, if we hadn't gotten a wrap up of that story, I'd have been fine, right? Like I would be frankly, I would have forgotten she was even part of the show, right? Like,
right. They could have shown her walking down the street and I would have been like, I guess she's fine.
And I wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Never again.
And, I just because she, like her whole role in the show wasn't that, I mean,
right.
It wasn't that critical really in the end. I mean, it was like she was sort of there, but it wasn't like her role in the whole thing really had not a lot to do with anything. You know?
And I can't even remember like so he was the data guy was a geneticist, and he basically his daughter, who I assume at one point was his real daughter, but she just kept dying, and then he kept.
Well, it was like somehow he's creating her.
Right.
So it was like she was like genetically created.
Okay.
Like without a mother right. So I don't think there was ever a mother involved. Like I don't think he actually had a daughter at one point. I think all of them were created.
He created it, then the one died. And he created another one, then she died. And so this one was the final one that had lived all this time.
Right.
But if it wasn't, I can't remember the story now. If it wasn't for Q interfering, wouldn't she have died?
Yes.
Right. Well, Q kept giving him the stuff. Right?
Yeah. Q gives her something so that she couldn't go outside. Right. She couldn't be exposed to sunlight. So Q gives her something so she can be exposed to sunlight. But then I guess that is what leads her to Wesley. So maybe she becomes. I don't know. Right. It's just like it's so convoluted. Like I don't understand.
And then meanwhile, like as we're talking about it, I'm like, why was Q even involved with that? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. Like because it initially seems like Q is attempting to prevent the Mars mission, right?
Wait, Europa, right?
The Europa mission.
Okay, right.
Yeah. He's trying to. That's what it seemed like. It seemed like he was trying to prevent the Europa mission. And so he's helping Sung.
Right.
But in the end, that's not really what, because in the end, Q's like all benevolent, like, oh no, I was just all about, but I was like, well, then why are you helping the guy?
Right.
Like, what was that about?
Yeah, at the end, he's like, Picard, you're my friend. I just thought I would do this for you, basically. And you're like, well, didn't you just help this bad guy?
Yeah, it's just a very, I don't know.
A very convoluted,
Yeah, it just needed to be simpler. Like the whole story needed to be simpler.
Well, it's almost like, yeah, like you can almost, it starts to fall apart because you're like, all right, we want to reveal this piece of Picard history that his mother committed suicide and then it affected him going forward. And then they're like, well, we promised Whoopi Goldberg a cameo, and we invited her to come back. So, all right, how are we going to squeeze Guinan in? And, oh, well, maybe we'll bring Q back. You know what I mean? Like, and then they start tacking, it's like they start tacking all these things onto it versus it would have been nice to have a story first. And then, you know what I mean? Like, they should have been like, hey, let's bring Q back. What are we going to do?
Yeah. The Q part of it all was very strange. Because it was sort of like you're saying, like, that's the part I wanted to see. I wanted to see what was going on with Q. And in the end, we didn't really get very much Q. A lot of what Q didn't really get explained.
Yeah, it didn't make
and then in the
sense.
end, I mean, the final scene with him and Jean-Luc is great.
Right.
Where you're just sort of like, I don't know, man. That's not what's seemingly going on at the beginning of the show.
Right. It's like, why didn't you just come in and be like, hey, man, I'm dying. I thought you should, you know.
Let's get a beer.
I thought you could use some help with your, you know, you're having some mental block there when about your poor mother. Let's let's go grab a beer, right?
I mean, it was just very, I don't know, very.
That's a perfect example of like, for once the expanded format didn't work.
No.
It almost, it's funny. Is like we always kind of talk about it and have talked about like the CW superhero shows, how they're like so strung out. Right?
Yeah.
22 episodes, the old network, and it's like, you might get a sliver of the cool story every episode, but the rest is like nonsense or like soap opera stuff and all that. And when they started doing these little half seasons, I was like excited because it used to be, there wasn't a lot of fluff. And even then with the Netflix shows, we're like, yeah, there's some fluff. So like, you're like, trim it more, make it, tighter. And this is now this show I'm watching this and like the first time with a TV show in a long time where I'm like, this should have been a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it was agreed.
So, hopefully season 3 will be it will be the final season, and hopefully with the original crew coming back, who knows what they're going to do. I mean,
I wonder if, like, it seems like, the thing that happens at the very end, which is that the Borg are now like, there to help.
Yeah.
And that portal or whatever opened up.
Right.
That the Borg are now guarding.
Right.
My guess is that's what the third season is going to be about. It's going to be about whatever's going on there.
Okay. Maybe they'll start bringing in everybody else to help with that or something.
I mean, I don't know, but it seems like, well, that's a story that's an interesting story. I would like to see more about that. Now, what they do with it, I don't know. But
I know, right? I almost really wish, in hindsight, if they wanted to do a Q story, and they should have had Q snap his fingers for season. The original crew was back, unexplained. At their current age.
Yeah,
and it could have been like, oh, and then they could have had the adventure, and at the end, the same thing could happen. Whereas Q's like, okay, you're, I'm dead, and you're healed.
Yeah,
and instead of all the other characters that we're not too crazy about, we got to solve the people we cared about.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see where it goes. I'm still looking forward to the third season. I think it would be great to see everybody together, but I just hope that the story is little tighter.
Yes, very much so. The only other thing, and I know you're not caught up on it, but I did watch the first episode of Strange New Worlds, and we can talk about it next time after you catch up. But I'll just say that I really enjoyed.
Okay, good.
And it was very much a Star Trek show in terms of the episode is self-contained. You know what I mean? Like there's an adventure and there's an ending. And you're like, well, I don't know where next week's going to go. But so I was very excited by that. I enjoyed everything else about it. I enjoyed but it was a one and done, and I was very pleased with it. Just for being that way. Yeah. So
I'm really looking. Like I really want to see it. I just haven't had time because I was catching up on everything else. So.
Right. Yeah. And as time goes on, there is I'm sure there'll be some overreaching story arcs, but it's. I think it's going to be more of like a more episodic, which I was looking forward to.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get back to that kind of, like, it'll be nice to have just
classic Trek.
Yeah, like
I mean,
just not like I said. I was actually, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. Like, I tend to I have the TV on a lot, just as background noise a lot of times,
Right.
and I tend to watch the same shows over and over. Not necessarily because like I'll have Seinfeld on, or I'll have Cheers on, or I'll have something, just a show kind of like running in the background. You don't have to pay like attention to 100%. You can sort of half pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And there's no TV like that anymore. Like they don't make TV shows like that anymore.
That's true. Right?
Everything is, because everything's like, there's an overarching story to everything, and so there's no shows that you could just put on and like sort of like half pay attention to it.
Right.
You just gotta like, you gotta be like focused on everything. And so I think that's like it'll be nice to have a show where you can like, I don't have to worry about like, well, what happened in that last episode that I missed because I don't understand what's happening in this episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was looking forward to that. And it's very well done. Very. It's funny. I saw a thing where for that we'll talk about it next time. But they apparently used the volume and that.
Oh, really?
A lot of the more you see, everybody's jumping on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
Everybody, So just quickly, there's a sequence with Captain Pike on a horse, and so on the volume they have fake snow and a real horse, but then behind him is the volume with the background, and there's, if you saw on the trail, there's windmills, and so they're in the background of the volume. It was just amazing. I'm like, I had no idea. Really cool. So it's really neat where they're going with this technology.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm going to watch the show. I think there's a new episode tonight. It's Wednesday. We're recording on a Wednesday. I think there's a new show tonight.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'll probably watch it Friday. We'll be able to talk about it next time. I'm really excited about that show because I thought Anson Mount as Captain Pike was amazing.
Yeah, he's great. I really like him a lot.
Yeah.
So all right. So that wraps us up on Star Trek, I guess. Do you have anything else?
No, not really. There's not much, nothing else going on for Star Trek that I can think of.
Okay. And that brings us, I guess, to our final.
Yes.
And
this is sort of a quick one.
Yeah.
Well, we can rant a little bit if we want to rant here. But so what's cool about so we got a little bit of Doctor Who news that's kind of exciting. They have announced the new Doctor. This is the new Doctor. I believe the way you pronounce his name, I don't quote me on this, because if I butcher, please, I apologize to the actor and everybody else. But I believe it's Ncuti Gatwa. Okay. And he is going to be the new Doctor, and that's kind of exciting. Not sure. I think sometime in 2023 it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think they didn't give us a date at all.
Yeah, so he will be the 14th Doctor, but they're not calling him the 14th Doctor anymore.
Oh, they did away with the numbers now.
Well, because of like what happened during Jodie Whittaker's time, they the Doctor may have more. Right, you found maybe more doctors that we don't know about.
Yeah, in the whole flux thing, did they ever explore that more or no? A little bit.
I honestly,
I don't remember.
I don't think if they did, they didn't explain. I mean, they explained it,
right?
But I don't know. They did. I was annoyed by that whole storyline.
Right. I remember you saying that, and so.
Just primarily because it's like they opened that door and then they didn't walk through it.
Right.
It's like if you're going to go there, then commit.
Right.
So,
but what do you think of this guy? I was surprised by with the announcement. It just caught me off guard. Mainly because for me, this guy, the actor, is in. There's a show on Netflix called Sex Education.
Yes, I have not seen it. I'm totally unfamiliar with the actor. I have never seen him.
So
in anything.
I actually watched that show.
Okay,
and it can be raunchy, but it's a funny show about kids in high school and figuring things out and whatever. So it's a funny. It can be cute. It can be raunchy. It can be funny. It's overall enjoyable, but. In the show, he's really good. He plays the main character's best friend. Okay, and he's a trip. He's really funny in the show, and so it was just when they announced it, I'm like, oh my god, that guy. It could be really fun. I don't know. It was just surprising that I was just surprised that I recognized him from one of my shows.
Well, it was funny because that's the show that everybody. I guess he's been in some other things. I think he's done a lot of stage.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that's the thing that everybody was talking about is he's in this show, Sex Education. I've never seen him in anything, so I couldn't tell you anything. So, but like, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it?
No, it's a little bit of both, but it definitely leans more towards comedy.
Okay, because I know Gillian Anderson is in it too, right?
Yes, yeah. She plays the main character's mother, who also is like a sex therapist, and there's a lot of awkward teenage sex stuff going on in it, like just them figuring things out and all that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I in the show, Ncuti, is that his name?
Ncuti, yeah.
Ncuti.
That's how I'm saying it. Yes.
So in the show, Ncuti. In the show, his character is gay, and I think he's gay in real life. I don't think that's I think I'm pretty sure he's out in real life. So but he's a trip in the show because like the show star he knows he's gay, but then like one of the other kids doesn't realize they're gay, and he's very flamboyant, I guess is a good. The way he plays his character, the show's flamboyant, so he's natural. He's very funny, and he's meant to be funny that way. So I'll be curious to see how he plays the Doctor. If he, if he's, it'd be neat to see how he plays him. It's gonna. I think it's gonna be a totally different take on him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, part of me was like, so I heard about that show that he was in it, and I was like, part of me was like, well, maybe I should go watch that. And then the other part of me is like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna wait, right? I'm just gonna wait to see him as the Doctor because. It's funny because I think we even talked about this when we were talking. Like there's always these rumors about who the new Doctor's going to be, and there's always a list of like a dozen names, and it's like, oh, it could be this person, it could be that person, and 9 times out of 10, it's like never anybody on that list, right? It's always somebody who's like nobody's ever heard of, or he's come from out of nowhere, and I mean Peter Capaldi was a little different. I mean Peter Capaldi was known, but like. Right. David Tennant, when he took the role, I mean, he wasn't. I mean, he was. I think he had been in Harry Potter or something.
Oh, okay.
But he was not David Tennant as we know him today. He was sort of unknown. Same for Matt Smith. I mean, he was. The Doctor role sort of made them, right?
Yes.
Made their name. So, so I'm kind of like, you know what? Maybe I'm just gonna hold out and I'll just watch him when he's the Doctor, so I can kind of like,
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good idea because then you're going to just see him as the Doctor, and you won't have any preconceived notions about him and stuff too.
Yeah. So.
I'm curious. I'm sure the fans. I haven't looked. I'm sure there's a lot to say out there. You know what I mean?
Undoubtedly, there's a segment that is. Got an issue with,
but also, it's obvious a bold choice for them to to choose. Because especially after Jodie Whittaker, they easily could have gone and picked an old white guy again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's a bold choice on their part. I give them credit for it. I mean, they're switching it up and go for it. Why not?
Yeah. This is what keeps Doctor Who alive. Right? Like, I mean, let's say the thing that keeps Doctor Who alive is that it changes, right? Like that's the, and it's usually a pretty big change from one character to the next, right? And that's what keeps it interesting. That's why people still watch. That's why one of the reasons I like watching it. So I'm dying. I mean, I'm always excited about a new Doctor. Always, it's
it's actually pretty. It's pretty neat just in terms of the structure, like, way back when William Hartnell was going to leave and they were going to bring in Patrick Troughton. Thank you. For them to be like, well, he's an alien. We could just do that. We could have him regenerate. Like, just that little, they were probably, from the one special I watched, like, wasn't William Hartnell sick and they're kind of like panicked. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And just it's like amazing, like, on the fly like that. They're like, well, we'll just regenerate it. And here it is 60 years later, however long it is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That, just that one thing has led to the longevity of it.
Right. And it was, and he had, William Hartnell was sick and he, I think shooting often got extended because he couldn't. It was getting to be a lot for him, so he couldn't do long hours and that kind of thing. So and it was like a writing trick because the show was still popular. So we're like, how do we keep this going with somebody different, right? And I love the idea. It's like I said, I think it's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's like every 3 years or so, it's like a reboot, a soft reboot. It's like, all right, new Doctor, new sets. The TARDIS gets redesigned every time, and it's a fresh start. Okay, we'll bring back.
And and it's expected. It's not like, oh my God, I can't believe what happened. It's like we're looking forward to it.
Right.
As soon as the new Doctor is announced, we're looking forward to the next one.
Right. Imagine being back in the the 60s. Imagine that way. He's regenerating. Imagine being those people. You're doing what now? Now it's like celebrated. Back then it's like, wait a second. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious to see what he can do with it and stuff. And it's fun. He's young, and you know what I mean. He's definitely got a personality and stuff to him. So it should be really neat to see. The
other really cool thing is apparently, and I didn't know this either. I mean, I knew Russell T Davies. He's is going to be the showrunner. So he's going to be the new showrunner, replacing Chris Chibnall. Russell T Davies was a showrunner, I think, originally.
Okay.
When it first rebooted, and people really like him. His stories were really solid. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, a lot of people weren't thrilled with how Chris Chibnall did a lot of stuff, and I have to. I didn't hate I liked Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Some of the stories I actually sort of liked some of the stories because the stories were. In my view, sometimes Doctor Who stories get completely ridiculous. Some of the stories for Jodie Whittaker, I think, were smaller, and I think that's a cool. Like I like that, right? Like I like that it's not like every episode is like a universe-shattering thing. Sometimes it's just a little episode, and I like that. And I thought she did, but like the last season, it's like I said, and that's why I really want to rewatch that last season. And that's why I can't find it anywhere, but I keep trying to rewatch it.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
But the last season it sort of felt like the same problem that Doctor or that Star Trek Picard had. It was like this story that kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the solution to it just didn't seem very satisfying, and that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, so. That's the one they branded Flux, right? Like,
yes,
I was very confused by that because don't remember ever seeing that before with Doctor Who that they've done stuff like that before. I mean, like Colin, but it's been a long time. I mean, Colin Baker's whole last season was Trial of the Time Lord, and it was sort of like that, but it was. It was like 6 episodes, but I don't know. Again, it's like I really feel like it's the same problem Picard had. It was like a lot of story, but not enough solution. You know what I'm saying? And it just kind of I felt like but again, I really because a lot happens, and I want to rewatch it to make sure that's a fair assessment. Yeah, I know, right.
So I'd like to rewatch it.
Yeah, we were complaining about earlier is that you can watch it on the AMC Plus app. And then where is that where you watch it normally?
That's where you can watch it in real time and then shortly thereafter.
Right, okay.
And that's how I watched.
Okay. Yeah, and then it goes away.
Right. Yes.
So I was saying that on the AMC Plus app, I watch Better Call Saul, but there's just this week they're like, if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, they're going to go away. And I'm like, well, but I'm paying for your app. Where are they going? And then they go into this void and they vanish for quite some time, and then eventually, like in Better Call Saul, it'll turn up on Netflix. And we know Doctor Who eventually goes to HBO Max, but I'm like, well, in this little window of time, or this could be a very large window of time, but where is it now? I want to watch it now, and so it's very, very frustrating that way.
Yeah, and I was just out there again this week on HBO Max. I was like, well, maybe now they just made this announcement, maybe it's out there.
It's still not out there. Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I'm like, I really should go back and check that out, and nope, not there.
Yeah, and
not on HBO Plus or not on the AMC Plus either. So I'm like, well, where is it?
Yeah, and the first episode of season 13 was in October of last year.
Right.
So it's been well over 6 months, and we still don't have it on HBO Max. So I don't look. Where is it? Where is it? I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
it's very bizarre.
Right. You know, it's a very strange business model to just let your show just vanish.
Right, and I'll pay for it. Show me where it is. I'll pay for that, and I'll watch it. But I don't even know where to go to look for it.
You already have me subscribing to how many different services.
Yeah,
I'll happily pay for it. Just tell me where it is.
Like it's crazy that you have to watch all Doctor Who, right? Classic series, reboot series, and current season. You have to have 3 different subscriptions. That's crazy.
That is.
You know, so I don't know. I don't get it.
No. Anyway, well, hopefully Ncuti Gatwa does a good job, and we're looking forward to him, coming being the 14th Doctor, and I hope hopefully Jodie Whittaker gets a good send off.
Yeah, and I think that's in the it's probably New Year's Day.
Oh, right, that would make sense.
It's either in the because they usually do a special on New Year's Day now. So I guess that's her last episode. I think. I don't know.
Right, because the last one was the because she was going to have the final season, and I think it's the 2 specials, and the one special is the one we were just talking about with the
Sea Devils one.
The Sea Devils one, right? And that is actually on AMC Plus right now. So it's like, so who knows when the next special is coming out? But obviously, that's going to introduce the new Doctor. So
right. So,
all right. Well, very good.
Look forward to.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Anything else for tonight?
I don't.
No. That's
all
it
good?
for me too. Yep. I think we're good.
All right. Well, that catches us up. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on. We have a Facebook account. You can check us out there. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Geek Hangout Pod. We're on Instagram. You can also check us out on YouTube if you want to see our handsome faces instead of just listening to us. You can check us out on YouTube. And with that, I will wrap up the show. So thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
All right.
Very good.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Yep.